Okay. So, I will talk about 4 Perl web service I wrote, and I hope you may like them. First, let me introduce myself. So, I'm Luc Didry. I'm known as From a Sky or just Sky on the web. I'm a sysadmin, so I'm not. I don't develop for work, but I am a Perl addict. I love Perl. I dream Perl. I eat Perl. So, please excuse my accent. I'm French, and yeah, I'm French. Since the beginning of my journey as a sysadmin, I developed a lot of software, scripts, daemons, some junk to do one thing and forget it. Not all of them are public because some are just for the work, or not really useful, and I'm not really proud of them, so not public. But there are some I'm quite proud of. So the 4 Perl web services are an URL shortener, which is called LSTU. Image hosting software, Lutin. A file hosting software, Luffy. And Dolomon. Quite complicated to explain just like that what it does, but it's about statistics, about links. So, I never talk of those software in English, so as you heard, LSTU, Lutin, Luffy, I just tell their name like French people would do. So LSTU, I wrote it in 2013. It stands for Let's Shorten That URL. Quite simple, because what does it do? What does it do? It shortens URLs. I'm not really good at naming software. You will understand later. But there is a lot of URL shortening service. For why creating another one? Best reason in the world, the boredom. One evening, I was bored. But I wanted to cut something. You know, do you ever had this tickling in your fingers? I want to cut something. I want to code. But what? No idea. So it was an evening. It was, I thought, something with Modulicious. Because I love Modulicious. Because Modulicious was a web framework I used at work on those times. It does a lot of things, it simplifies a lot of things, it contains a lot of features. So I wanted to use Modulicious because it's a great web framework. I wanted something fast to code because it was one evening. I wanted to have a proof of concept, something that works in one evening. So URL shortener, text URL, gives URL, and when you go to the given URL, it redirects you to the first URL. What is simpler than that? Quite nothing. So it was perfect just to code, just to have fun. The interface is really simple. See, you have one URL, one field, you give the original URL. You can choose to have a customized shortener text because goop.gl.env majuscule capital W, etc. is quite helpful to give to people. But sometimes you want to have a very simple URL to give to people. For example, here is a talk about Andro Shitov, Shitu. Is it a U or a V? Well, so you can you can want to have a simple URL, lstu.ifr/Andrew Shitoff. Done. Something simple that you may put on Kakemono, on flyers, etc. So a custom shortened URL is quite useful. So it's really simple. You give an URL, you optionally give a custom shortcut, shortened URL. LSTU gives you an URL, obviously, and a QR code, because nowadays you have a QR code and flyers and other communication stuff. And you simply use the new URL instead of the original one. The visitors are redirected with a permanent redirection to the original URL. And it increments visit counter on LSTU, because it was simple to code, and I quite like to know if people goes on my links. And that's it. It's really simple, basic, simple. You can obviously you can sorry. You can see your statistics about your links, but it's only stored. The counters are server side, but your shortened URL are stored in cookies, because I didn't want to store who shortened that URL. This URL belongs to who? I don't know. I don't want to know. My softwares are quite privacy oriented, so the less I know, the better it is. Some tech details about LSTU. So it uses the modulus use framework. There is a carton cpan file on the Git repository, so you can deploy. That's the preferred way to deploy LSTU. You can deploy it with Carton. You install the dependencies in local, and up, you have all the things you need with the version I used to develop. So better. Currently, it supports SQLite, MySQL, PostgreSQL, but any database can be used. You just have to cut the connector. It's really simple, since LSTU doesn't do much things. The operation of the database are simple, so everyone can write a connector. I didn't write the MySQL connector. I just did the SQLite and the PostgreSQL. There is a theme system. So the interface you saw previously is not the only one. I have 2 official themes, and anybody can write his own theme. And it's internationalized, and it supports 4 languages for now. Let's go to Lutin. I wrote that one year after. Lutin stands for Let's Upload That Image. When I said I am bad at naming software, it's not a joke. So you upload the images, and you give the URL to your friends, or use it in your website, or do whatever you want with an URL that points to an image. The main goal was, it was an XMPP conversation with friends. I have a problem on that software. Can you send me a screenshot? XMPP is great, but sometimes it's quite hard to send files through XMPP. My server is not configured for that. Or I'm behind a proxy, etc., etc. So, simple things. You drop the image on Lutin. You have an URL. You give a URL to your friends. That was the main goal. For what I wrote Lutin. Privacy. Images can be encrypted. server-side, because if you encrypt the images on client side, you can't use the images on your website without some JavaScript. So I wanted to make things simpler for the user. But still, the service provider can see them, but you just have to look at the access log in Nginx or Apache to see the decryption key. You have to have trust in your Lutin provider or provide your hosting it yourself. It's fire and forget, so you can have an auto-destruction delay. So for the screenshot to my friends, I don't want to put too much data on my Lutin server, so I just said in 7 days it will be auto-destroyed. Or you can even have destroyed at first view. So I give one to one friend, even if he even if he give the URL to other people can have the image. But obviously, my friend can download the image and give the image to other people, but still. You can store the image in one place and use it everywhere, websites, social networks, etc. So in diaspora network, there's sometimes when you are on multiple social networks, you may want to post the same image on diaspora, on Mastodon, on this one and this one and this one. So you may just upload it on Lutin and give a URL. There is a social integration for Twitter, because I use Twitter on those times. And so it's embedded in Twitter. The interface is less simple than LSTU, because it does more things. So you can see here delete at first view. You can have a delete by default. It delete EXIF tags on the images you send. You can choose the deletion delay. You can even just put an image URL here, and Lutin will fetch it for you. So you choose your option, retention delay, EXIF tag deletion, etc. You drop the image, you have an URL, you use it. And when somebody sees the image, a visit counter. I like visit counters. And that's all. But you can do more. You can delete your own images. This time it's still the image property ownership is still not stored on the server. It's still on your browser, but that's not cookies this time. It's in local storage. Why local storage instead of cookies? Because cookies are more often deleted than local storage. And I already have JavaScript on Lutin for it to work, so I can use the local storage and manipulating it with JavaScript. On LSTU you can visit it without JavaScript. It works. Lutin, it works, but you don't have all the features. And you can create a gallery with your images. So you upload 10 photos of your vacation, and you have an URL with a gallery. So, hey grandma, I'm in Brussels right now, and I took some photos. Here's the link, and she doesn't have to go on 10 links. She has a link to see all your photos. Lutin was based on LSTU code. It's quite similar on some aspects for the randomness of a URL. It grew, but it's still LSTU children. And when I sometimes I introduce a feature in Lutin and I bypart it to LSTU because it may be useful. Tech details, quite similar. Modulus use, Carton, SQLite and PostgreSQL DB. Since I didn't wrote the MySQL DB connector on LSTU, I don't like MySQL, so I don't write connector for them. It has a FAME system, and it's internationalized too. Luffy, the year after. Luffy stands for Let's Upload That File. You see the scheme in the naming software? You upload files, and you have an URL. Still simple interface. Drop file, delete at first download, retention daily. What is that? You can add a password to files. This time, the file is encrypted on client side with JavaScript and some JavaScript libraries I don't understand, but they do some good crypto. Stanford Crypto, SCGL. Don't remember the acronym of the JavaScript library, but it's a good encryption library. It's quite the only one you can use nowadays. So you choose the retention daily, you drop a file you encrypted, you have an URL, you give that URL to your friend. The file is decrypted on the client side, and a visit counter is incremented. If the file is an image or a video, it can be watched or viewed directly in the browser. So decryption is done, poof, you have a video player appearing, and you don't have to download to get the file on your disk to watch the video. So, Luffy used some code of Lutin, and it's still it growed, still Lutin's children. Just like for Lutin and LSTU, when I do something in Luffy that you can be useful for LSTU or Lutin, I bypart the features. Tech details. This time, the encryption key is never sent to the server. The file hoster can never decrypt the file on the server. Modulus framework, Carton, SQLite, PostgreSQL, FIM system, and internationalized. Dolomon. I began to work on Dolomon in 2015, but the real first working version is from last year. It stands for Download Monitor. You see, I'm getting better at naming software. Simple links visit statistics. So when you think about statistics, about analytics, for website, either you use Piwik, no Matomo, or you use Google Analytics or some other shitty service. You may use AWS State. I don't know how to spell it. But the thing is, the softwares make great statistics. But sometimes you just want to know how many times how many people goes on my page. I don't want to know if they use Firefox, Chrome. I don't know if their screen resolution is 2000. I don't care. Sometimes I just want to have simple counter. So I wrote a software that does that. The interface is quite complicated, so you don't have just one page like the other softwares. The better thing to do is to test it, because I will explain all of that, but I can't show you exactly how it works. So it's quite like an URL shortener. I want to say, you give an URL, it gives you another URL. It's not really shortened, but who said that, that an URL shortener has to be really shortened? When you go on Twitter, the links are transformed to t.co/. The URL is shortened. Well, it's transformed, and it's quite. You can say it's short because it's long. So you give an URL to the domain, it gives you another URL. That I called a dolo, just because I wanted to have a fun name. When people use the dolo URL, they are redirected to the target with a temporary redirect, because unlike LSTU, in LSTU, when you create a shortened URL, you can't move it, you can delete it, you can change it. It's permanent. So I permanently redirect the people that visit the links. In Dolomon, you can change the target link. So it's a temporary redirection. And then I increment counters, but with a job queue. Why a job queue? Just because to be able to increment more counters, it's quite a complicated work to increment all the counters. It takes time. It calls the database multiple times. So better if it's on a different job queue. If it's not down, just when people visit the link. In fact, I created Dolomon because of a friend that uses WordPress. WordPress is quite good, but he used a plugin on WordPress that is called Download Monitor. And the problem with that plugin, so it does quite the same thing as Dolomon. So transform an URL in another URL and increment the counter. But that friend had a lot of visits, and people used the watch links a lot. And WordPress, as a download monitor is synchronous, it took the database to look at the database. Okay, this is the URL I will redirect the person to. And I increment and I redirect. And when you have a lot of visits, the increment, it puts the server down. Seriously. The site was unusable. All the sites were frozen because the database access exploded. Just that. So, first an external service, and then not synchronously, increment the counters. So when you have time, you increment. If you have a lot of jobs, well, it's a job queue. I treat them pack by pack, 4 by 4, and if I really want, I create another job queue process, and it will work faster. So this is why it's a job queue. The statistics are available in different granularities. Each visit are stored for 3 days. So for 3 days, you can know at what time people click on the link. Visit per day are stored for 90 days per default. All the periods of granularities are configurable in the configuration file. So, but per default, by default, it's 90 days. Per weeks, 12 weeks. Per month, 36 months. And per year, they are stored forever. That's one of the things I don't like about P-week. It's that you can go really long in the past and have statistics. But do you really want to know on each day of the year 2000 what were the statistics in the year 2000 per day? If you are serious, first you store the reports, and then you compare from the reports of the last year. You don't have to go to P-week each year to compare on P-week. So that's why the granularity is bad on Dolomon for the old days and good on the recently. And that's for having a database on the correct size. P-week just grows and grows and grows and grows. The size of the database of P-week grows forever. Then you can have lovely graph. And you can see for the 3 last days, last 90 days, last 12 weeks, etc. You can download the raw data. So you can import them in LibreOffice Calc and do a graph like you want. One thing, you can organize your Dolo. So I repeat, one Dolo is one URL. You can organize your Dolo in categories, and you can add tags. So that you can have aggregated statistics for one category, for one tag. So my friend who used Download Monitor on WordPress, he now use Dolomon. He have a category EPUB. EPUB. He's currently writing a novel, and he wants to know how many people download the EPUB file of his novel. So you have one URL per chapter, and with the categories system, you can just click on categories and have all the statistics for his novel. Dolomon, it's like LSTU in the core. It's like an URL shortener. So he was inspired by LSTU, and my friend asked, "Can I have good statistics in LSTU?" No, I will write another software because LSTU is simple and I want to keep it simple. Statistics are fully anonymous. No tracking is done. The only cookie Dolomon sent to the browser is a cookie to say which stays for 3 minutes by default, and to avoid to count people that click and click on the same link multiple times. There are people that click, or if you want to falsify statistics, you click. If you have the cookie, you can't. But if there is a do not track header, I don't send the cookie. I developed, so it was for WordPress. Okay, so I developed a WordPress plugin to create dolos from WordPress. It's not on the WordPress plugin base, but it's on its way. Tech details. What a surprise! Modularious use. Carton. Only PostgreSQL, because I didn't want to bother with other database, and since it may have a lot of traffic on the public Dolomon instance, you want to have PostgreSQL. Unlike P-week that works on that use MySQL, and that's such a bad choice. So It has a theme system. It's internationalized. 2 languages for now. 2 languages, English, French, of course. So, from one evening of boredom, a family of software is born. Just because I wanted to cut something, and people liked it. And, well, I like coding. I like writing software. So it's a long and fun journey to write softwares. Lutin, LSTU, Luffy, and Dolomon are used in production, are production ready. They are used by Fromsoft Association. It's a non-profit organization, and it's quite like it's battle test. It battle tested. So on the official instance of Lutin, lut.em, lut.em, I already have 2 million or more images. I don't have 2 million images now, but because they are self-destruct. But I already stored 2 million images. So, where to find the software? So, it's always on fromagit.org/luc/ the name of the software. LSTU, Lutin, Luffy, Dolomon. LSTU, you can try and use it on lstu.fr or frama.link. Lutin, it's on lut.em or framapic.org. For Luffy, there is no official instance. There is a demo instance on demo.luffy.io. Oh, a typo. It's not .org, it's .io. But you can use it for real on framadop.org. Dolomon, no official instance, but you can use and try on pharmaclick.org. If you want to help for translation, you can go on another typo, trad.framasoft.org, and you can download those slides on lstu.fr/FOSDEM-2018. Do you have any question? No question.
Modules are not released to CPAN.
I don't have modules. It's not. It's softwares and not modules, and it's quite complicated for me. I don't have. I may do it. I may be able to do it, but it's quite complicated, and I already have problems on my own for meeting those softwares, and I didn't took the time. And because I use Carton, I don't know how to integrate Carton in CPAN release. So it may be a little bit complicated. But I developed some Mojo Issues plugin for those softwares, which I released on the CPAN. Thank you.